Dale Semper joins us now alongside his partner, Denise, who supported him throughout this ordeal, and his lawyer, Natasha Shim. Dale, just to understand the thing I find baffling about this case, aside from the appalling treatment of you when you were arrested and afterwards, is that you were arrested. The police clearly thought they had intelligence. They made allegations. It was untrue. It took 2 years for them to find out that none of this was true. What was happening in that 2 years? What were they doing? And how was life for you in those 2 years?
For me, I felt like just over those 2 years, it felt like I spent a lot of time living in nothingness. I felt like no part of anything I do actually made sense. For me, it felt like I just didn't want to be here. I feel like no matter what I do, like someone is always after me and trying to destroy me. And it broke me. It broke me so bad. And knowing that I can't help and support my family, and everyone is looking at me, judging me, thinking that I've committed these crimes and I've done these things. And
you were suspended from your job. Were there lots of police interviews? What was happening?
During that time, being suspended from my job and not having any answers and no one to actually help me and support me in any way, I just had to lean on the side of my family and my solicitors, because for me, those were the only people around that was supporting me.
Dale, you were working successfully as a bank manager on a very good salary and building a life for yourself, as anybody would, earning what you were earning and doing what you were doing. Perfectly legitimate, contributing member of society doing an important job. So take us back to that day in August 2017, which has led not just to a 2-year nightmare of an investigation which came to nothing, but a 7-year nightmare where you've tried to get justice for the way that your life was blown up by these false claims. Just talk to us about the moment you got stopped and how that escalated out of control.
The first time when I got stopped, first of all, I thought that because this happens to me all the time, I was thinking, you know what, it's just going to be a stop and search, and that's it.
When you say it happens to you all the time?
Because throughout the years, I was stopped at least 2 to 3 times per month, just because I'm driving a nice car and so on. So I thought this was just going to be, part of the process is going to be exactly the same thing. They're going to stop me, search, and then going to let me go.
Do you mean, because you haven't said it, but I'm going to ask, do you mean because you're a black man driving a nice car, you feel that you're stopped 2 or 3 times?
That's exactly what I feel, and I know that's what it is. But the thing is, I didn't want to have that stigma thinking that's actually what it is, but it was. And
so you thought it was just a regular, your 2 or 3 times a month experience. You're going to get stopped, you're going to explain, I've got a nice car because I'm working as a bank manager. I'm not doing anything wrong, thanks very much. What happened?
From that, they took me to my property, searched, and then they said they're going to arrest me for money laundering. I'm like thinking, but you was looking for firearms. There was no firearms. You should be releasing me on this point. But from there, it then escalated. Years later, I feel like there's no justice for me. I just feel like they tried to destroy me, and I know that's what they've done. I know that's exactly what they've done. They was trying to find things that wasn't actually there, but if you'd done a thorough investigation, you would know that this guy was innocent and you may have made some mistakes. But if someone admitted to me after a month, a few months, or a year even, and say, you know what, we've made these mistakes, let's let it go. But 7 years later, I think it's disgusting.
Have they given you any explanation as to what they thought they had found and why they were wrong?
And no, none whatsoever. And that's the problem with me, because now I'm going to be living the rest of my life always thinking, having that thing over my head, thinking I'll never actually know why you've done this, why you've come at me, why you've tried to destroy me. So even now, although the case has been settled, I still am nowhere nearer to understanding as to why this has happened.
No.
Do you feel that you haven't received justice because you need to hear from the senior police officer there was no evidence, we were entirely wrong, we were barking up the wrong tree, and we fully apologise? Do you feel like there's still a lingering sense, because they haven't admitted any liability, that you still carry something round with you?
Yeah. And I feel that's going to carry on for many, many years to come, because after being diagnosed with PTSD, I know to myself that unless somebody comes to me and said, Dale, I've done this wrong, and this is what we're going to do to put it right, apologise to me, make me feel like something has been done. But for me now, I would always think that they're still going to be trying to get me, no matter what I do, because no one's actually said they've done anything.
So you feel like the next time you might be stopped, something might happen?
Yeah. And I feel like right now, I still think that it's not over. Although they've said it's settled, I still feel like it's not over.
Denise, you are Dale's partner. Were you with him in the car at the time of the initial stop? Yeah. Yes. So you experienced it firsthand every step of the way.
Yes, and it was so traumatic. But, you know, it goes back to what your parents said to you, comply. Let them do what they have to do. Cool. So that was our mode that day. Let's let the police respect them, give them their due respect and let them do what they need to do. You know, comply, let them search us, you know, let them search the car. And we thought, naive, that that would be the end of it. But then it escalated. We now need to search your house. Not only Dale's house, my house, Dale's mum's house. So that's 3 houses in one day they're going to search. They wasn't upfront with telling us that my house was going to be searched. They didn't tell me his mum's house was going to be searched. So we're trying to get Dale through what's happening in his house and trying to be patient with them, asking them questions. But they weren't truthful to us whatsoever. And it hurts how callous they treated us that day and how they left our life in tatters just because they could.
Can I... we know that you settled with the Metropolitan Police. There was a financial settlement. And your lawyer, Natasha Shibb, is with us as well. But before we turn to Natasha, let's just tell our viewers what the Metropolitan Police have told us and then ask you to respond to this. Deputy Assistant Commissioner Stuart Cundy from the Met Police told us, we accept some elements of this case were not handled as well as they could have been. We apologise for the impact that that has had on the complainants. So they've settled, they've paid some money, they said some of the elements weren't well handled, but do we know what these elements were and why they were mishandled?
Well, this is it. It's so unclear. It's such an ambiguous statement. You know, going back to it, the investigation, we're looking at an investigation that took over 2 years to conclude with no further action. And it's not clear from that statement which parts they're accepting was not handled properly. Although the case has settled, there's so many unanswered questions. And, you know, we're still waiting, you know, for disclosure of all the criminal case file to try and get an understanding and perspective as to how this started in the first place and what exactly went wrong during the, you know, during the investigation and who made those decisions. Our case has always been that this was racial profiling from the very beginning. You've heard those comments that were captured on the various officers' body-worn video cameras during the searches of Dale's property. And I just don't think the apology goes far enough because there's just, like, no accountability and there's a lack of transparency as well. It's
clear from Dale's reaction that that lack of information and understanding it continues to be massively destabilising for you.
Have you been stopped since?
Strangely enough, never been stopped since this whole thing has happened. I'm just beginning to think it must have been something you had against me. There must be something against my car that would have stopped them now from ever stopping, because I haven't been stopped not even once.
Really? So do you think your number plate is flagged as don't stop?
Yeah, that's what I'm beginning to think, because I haven't been stopped not even one time.
And if you were now, how would you feel?
I would feel hurt again, but then I would just like for them to explain to me why you're doing this, because now I know a bit more, as in how it should work. So I would have to have questions to ask those officers as to why you are stopping me.
Right.
Yeah.
Quite often, when we have conversations, we think to ourselves, it could have been me.
Yes. Yeah.
Could have happened to any of us. But clearly that is not true in this case. This happened to you because you are a black man. It was about your race. Is that something that the Metropolitan Police have acknowledged to you?
No, that's something they haven't acknowledged, and I don't think they ever would. And this is one of the reasons why I'm thinking that if you've done something wrong, just own up to it. You've done that. You made a mistake. Own up to it. Have a conversation with me. Own up to it. But you haven't. And I don't think they ever will.
No, and they've put you through 7 years fight, haven't they?
Yeah.
I think that the Met commander, Mark Rowley, if he was here with us, I think he would acknowledge that.
Well, except why hasn't he met you?
Well, exactly.
That's something you would like, isn't it?
Yeah, I would really love to have a conversation with him, just to sit down to find out what learnings they were taking away from this case, what they're going to do to put things right, and to discuss with the police officers so they have some kind of accountability as to why they do these things. But until that's done, I think there's going to be never going to be any change.
Dale, thank you for coming in. I'm glad it's settled, but I can understand your ongoing feelings of anxiety. Denise, thank you very much indeed. Natasha Shim, thanks for being with us as well.